Welcome to Forward with NACCE, Inspiring Entrepreneurial Action, a podcast that shares the stories of everyday entrepreneurs, entrepreneurial leaders, and the communities that support us. We hope that this diverse collection of stories brings you inspiration, inspires you to take action, and ignites entrepreneurship in your community as we make our way forward together.
Welcome to this episode of Forward with NACCE. I'm Rebecca Corbin, and I'm really excited to have a couple of special guests with us in the studio today. They've done a lot of really great work building a business, but they've got a lot of interesting facts about personality and how that impacts the work that we all do, regardless of your station in life. They also are good friends, so that makes it an even more pleasurable experience. So I'm going to jump in with our first guest, Chris Mackey, who is the co-founder of Skillsline. And I want you to begin, Chris, by just talking a bit about your background. I remember you grew up in Indiana, of all places, or went to school there, I should say. So just jump in and give us a little bit about your background and what led you to doing the work you're doing today.
Oh, thanks a lot, Becky. And thank you very much for having us here today. We're pretty excited about being on your podcast. So my background, geographically, I was born in Salt Lake City, moved to New Jersey, went to middle school, high school, and college in Indiana, and then spent a year in Germany in the interim. So geographically, I'm not exactly sure where I'm from. And I vowed to my children that I would raise them in one spot. So we've so far have done that. So my background, I went to Indiana University. During the tech boom, I don't know if it's the first, but one of them in the late 90s, I moved to San Francisco and I got a job selling websites door to door, actually. And that's one of the things that is interesting to mention, because it was something that ignited my admiration of the everyday entrepreneur. Some of the folks that you would talk to on the streets in San Francisco are actually business owners, restaurants, small gyms, bookstores. They were amazing people. They're highly intelligent, highly driven. And I was walking around asking them if they had heard of the World Wide Web. If they responded no, I would say, well, have you heard of the internet? So that was, anyway, my first foray into understanding the mindset of entrepreneurship and the drive behind folks that have small businesses. But from there, I got promoted into a variety of different positions, went to Pepperdine University, but I got my real start in education at the Myers-Briggs company, where I first we started a joint venture that was focused on helping students make career and life decisions around choosing a major. And we had a lot of success with that. And we actually moved the operation in-house and formed an innovation labs where we worked with the U.S. Department of Education and federal student aid to we developed a platform, that the program called Project Success, that had an outsized effect on retention and student retention and engagement, and had a very high amount of usage from counselors and the folks that were actually advising those students in making the major decision. So I'll pause there and let someone else cover how we started Skillsline, because it's all part of the same journey.
It's an exciting journey. And I think I figured out why we get along so well too. I was born in Bloomington, Indiana. So I literally was born into higher education. My dad was a graduate student there at the time and went on to do really great work in sociology. But much like you, being a citizen of the world and living in different places and getting greater appreciation, I'm anxious also, Courtney, Reilly, to hear about your background. I don't know you quite as well as I know Chris, but I know you guys have an amazing partnership, and we're going to talk about how that has evolved over time, really, because there might be people who are listening that are thinking about creating a business that they're passionate about. So why don't you jump in and tell us about you? For those who are watching this on YouTube, you have a beautiful background. So maybe you just jump in and share with us about that, because it's gorgeous.
Thank you. Yes. So I'm in my home in Chicago, which is a condo and a converted church. So that's the arch-shaped windows and exposed brick in the background. And I went to college at Southern Methodist University for anthropology and business. And I feel like that is a really good analogy for how I've built a career and also choosing an interesting place like this to live. I've always been really interested in just how systems work, how things connect, how we get to where and the forces that are at play. And I took a very probably traditional business kind of career path. Following college, I went into management consulting, After business school, I went into investment banking, but I was always really interested in what is the key to unlocking economic mobility for more people. So in between those things, I spent some time working in East Africa, and I transitioned from investment banking into an education nonprofit organization. So always trying to see how can I use my skills and my abilities to push forward on creating more opportunity for more people. And Chris and I met back in 2018, I believe. We'd only known each other a little bit, had met at a couple conferences, reconnected in 2020. And when we were all stuck in our homes, and started talking about what we really wanted to do, what impact we wanted to have. And one of the things that I had realized, I was working at the time for the ASU GSV Summit, was leading the K-12 program, was looking at a lot at how K-12 and the world of work connect and how we can better prepare students for making choices about their future and then following through on those. And what I was seeing, and I think what Chris was seeing from his role at the Myers-Briggs Company, was that one thing that nobody was really teaching were the skills that enabled students to really deeply understand who they were, how to connect productively with other people, and how to set goals and work their way towards achieving them. And that is a skill set, and we call it the human skills. Obviously, soft skills is the nomenclature that most people are familiar with. There's a lot of different terms, but we talk about durable human skills, and they are the most important for creating a successful career. And so we got together and said, how can we help solve this problem?
And I'll just interject one thing there, that I think human skills are an entirely new category unto themselves. Soft skills may be a part of that, and there's some overlap, but it's definitely not an equation. So I would just add that a little bit of, maybe that's something that'll come up a bit later when we talk about our partnership.
Yeah. And I think too, Courtney, listening to you, just having that spirit of curiosity, to me, just being curious about the world. And you were talking about your background and having varied experiences, but not everybody's programmed the same way. So some of the teaching that we do around entrepreneurial mindset and cultivating some of those things is really this concept that grew out of Sarah Saraswati at the Darden School at the University of Virginia. She talks about the crazy quilt. And I love that concept because it's, if you really want to develop something very impactful, put yourself with different kinds of people and really understanding what people bring to the table and how we all think about our close family and friends, how it really forming those partnerships that work. In my case, my husband's an electrical engineer, so you couldn't find somebody different for me. But the secret to a happy life, happy situation is really honoring that. So I want to get into a little bit of that because I know what you talked about in terms of Skillsline and soft skills, and you've had to do that building your business through the pandemic. So I think at one point, Chris, you said, or maybe Courtney said to me at an earlier conversation, there's speed and there's scale. So let's talk, maybe begin with Chris talking a little bit about Skillsline in particular, like what is it? And let's talk, maybe Courtney, you can get into a little bit about how you've built your business around it. Like what have those experiences been like? And then we'll talk about where you're going.
Okay, sure.
Great.
So when we think about Skillsline, as Courtney mentioned, we are the human skills company. We think of ourselves as providing learners with a foundational understanding of human skills. So in an age when there's increasing automation, increasing artificial intelligence, and the humans their first instinct is to run for the hills. And actually those skills that humans have that are uniquely human are the ones that employers need today, right? Employers say that human skills are just as important, or at least 92% of them, as the technical skills, right? So we've figured out and developed a systematic way to provide organizations with a workforce, community colleges, their students, with a foundational understanding of what those human skills are. So there are two components there. One is the technology platform, and the other is the professional development and discussion that deepens the learning that's found on the platform. With that, I'll turn it over to Courtney to talk a little bit about how we develop the business quickly. I think it's one of the really unique things about our approach.
To build on what Chris was saying there, what we thought about a lot was understanding the learning science that's come out and how do we take advantage of both technology and learning science in bringing these skills forward for young people. And so our learning platform actually breaks down this breadth of human skills into 10-minute micro lessons that are presented in a very systematic, structured way, but also enable learners to move around to what is most relevant for them at any given time. And so when we were getting this started, we had education technology companies start by finding a great technologist, they raise money, they start building a platform. We said, how do we do all of that in an opposite way where we don't need to spend 6 months trying to raise money during a pandemic? And we can start testing this as soon as possible with young people, with learners, and develop with them. And we, through Chris's connection, we found an amazing author, an expert in this space. She has a 30-plus-year career as a consultant for businesses and community colleges, Dr. Donna Dunning, who's based in Vancouver. And she was a fantastic member of our team, got really excited about thinking about bringing this knowledge of skills in a new way. And then we also connected with a technology company that was interested in using the platform that they had created in different ways and allowing us to start experimenting and saying, hey, you have a micro lesson type of setup there. Can we white label that and put our content there and get going much more quickly? So within 2 months, we had 2 weeks worth of content on a technology platform. We had found some high school and college partners that were interested in this, and we had students actually going through our content and giving us feedback.
Oh, wow. That is speed. So that is really quick. But I think, again, getting back to entrepreneurial mindset, you're bird in hand, you're both relationship builders, you're both connectors, finding the right people that share your passion but have knowledge and skills. So that's very cool. So the speed piece. So who wants to talk about the scale part of it? Where are you with scaling this, or where are you headed?
Chris, you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. And I wanted to just say, as far as speed goes, I mean, we learned a lot through that speed, right? And I think one of the key learnings was where we could scale, what was replicable, what was working and what was not, where were the inefficiencies in our system. And so we're right here now at a point where we think we are poised for that sort of scale. We work statewide in Louisiana with an organization that's part of the Department of Workforce Development. It's a national organization called Jobs for America's Graduates, where we bring Skillsline to all of their specialists, which are teachers in the classroom, and all of the students all across Louisiana. So that's scale, but we're thinking even bigger. And we have a partnership on the horizon that looks to, in the initial phase, serve about 50,000 students and go up from there. So in terms of scalability, one of the things we've also focused on morphing and being flexible to other programs and supporting those programs and enhancing them. So it wasn't a big decision for a school to make around, hey, we've got to implement a new program. We've got to start over from scratch wholesale. Rather, we were able to quickly dovetail into existing programs and augment and enhance them with an easy to implement system that involved technology, which is cutting edge and collects a lot of data and feeds that back to teachers and employers, but also a discussion forum, which is in person, which we believe in quite a bit. We really believe in that human connection at scale, and the technology enables that human connection. But I think it's really resonating with our potential customers and partners, giving us a lot of confidence to go after these larger scalable opportunities.
Yeah, you both did a great job in explaining that, even to non-business listeners, of thinking about that, because the work that we do at NACCE in principally the higher ed space is trying to get people to see that if you want to start an everyday entrepreneurship program, you don't need a building, you don't need a full-time person. You take what you have and you begin small, and then you find, like you said, you morph or you pivot as opportunities arise. So I think that is fantastic. I can't wait to see you guys just grow and do this. And also, I have to say that the entrepreneur solves a problem, and a problem that you're solving, I hear every single employer. And honestly, NACCE, we struggle with that too, because trying to keep and retain and recruit staff, you have to have people that can get along with one another and people that share your core values. So I have a question for both of you, because I think the human skills component is really important. So I'd like to start with Courtney. I know there are many human skills. Which two do you find to be the most important? And then Chris, I'm going to go to you and see if you agree or if you have other two that you think are even more important.
Oh boy, Becky, you did not prepare us for this one.
I know, this is the surprise element of the podcast.
They are all so important. I'm hedging, but I will answer. They're all so important. And every individual has their individual strengths, right? And for some people, some of them come very naturally. Others are really hard to develop. And so I just want to put that out there before giving an answer to this one. But I would say that an understanding of self-agency, self-management, who I am and how I show up in the world is just a critical one. It truly is the foundation for everything else. I mentioned that on our platform, learners can jump around to what's most relevant. We always guide towards starting in that self-agency or self-management area because it builds the foundation for the rest. I think that I'm hedging again. I'm going to go two more, but one is obviously about getting things done. We call that a results orientation. There's a lot of skills underneath there that you can break down further, but ultimately it comes down to, are you a person who gets done what you say you're going to get done? That is the key to a successful career. But in today's world, understanding and embracing inclusion is absolutely critical. And so we're really proud of having content around that skill included. And I think it's extremely important as we think about companies operating globally, and there is nowhere that you can work over a lifetime where you're not going to interact with people who come from different places, come from different backgrounds, and key to being productive in those work environments is knowing how to embrace and work with people who are different than you.
Okay, great answer. Great answer. Chris?
Oh, I get the hard one too.
Get the hard one. This is the surprise question.
So I think why it's a difficult question to respond to specifically is because these skills are so intertwined, right? We can say we learn communication in a silo. Oh, now we're going to learn listening in a silo. We're going to learn decision-making in a silo, right? But actually they all work together, right? If I make a decision, I'm considering the system. I'm considering systems thinking. I'm considering how to provide feedback on the decision that somebody else has made that we're going to change, right? So all of these things are interwoven. With that being said, that's my little hedge. The two that I think about are stopping my self-limiting beliefs and recognizing them, right? But on the other hand, is that I need to act intentionally in the world. So acting intentionally, setting goals and managing my time. So I would say looking at prioritization in the context of this, okay, the world is my oyster. Hey, at the same time, you only have so much time. So while I want to recognize those self-limiting beliefs, I also find that I need to prioritize which ones I actually take action upon. So it's interesting when Courtney mentions the dynamics and the strengths that two different people have. It's brought a lot to me in thinking of how to better get results because I have a tendency to pursue many beliefs and without limits, right? So anyway, I think it's a really interesting question because it is hard for us to suss out exactly what those skills are with specificity because they are so interwoven. And that's really the approach that our content takes too.
And I think that's why listening to you talk about it, it's a great way to understand like the complexity of all of us, really, because what makes humanity really is our differences. And we want to include people, but include people meaningfully. And just, Chris, what you talked about, just that sense of, because I'm like that too. I see possibility in everything. Like everything to me is a yes, let's do it. And I have some really good people in my life that said, you need to say no more. Like you can't say yes to everything. Not everybody or every opportunity has the same potential. So I'm going to, for the purpose of this podcast, give you an additional one, which I know is threaded through all of the work that you do. When I think about the human skill that I think is just so critically important, it's empathy. And I think that was woven into a little bit of what you were talking about in terms of self-agency, Courtney, because I think a lot of the work that we do with community colleges, we need to model and teach people not only to have empathy for other people, but to have empathy for themselves, because the secret, I think, to a good life is not only forgiving others, but forgiving ourselves when we fail to measure up or we take on too much and we can't make our commitments. I love that we can have this conversation because I'm a huge fan. I think, Chris, when we got to know each other through the Myers-Briggs, I taught a class years ago at Meredith College that was based on the Keirsey temperament sorter, which sort of is rooted in that understanding of ourselves. And I think that's why what you all have developed and the work that you do aligns so beautifully with NACCE. So I want to thank both of you for spending time with us today. We're excited to share this out through our growing network. And I just invite you to give just maybe a final word as we wrap up, something now that we're learning to live with this pandemic, just something that you're hopeful about in the future. Chris, maybe we'll start with you and then we can end with you, Courtney, and we can all get on with our day.
So I would like to thank you for one thing, for being an empathetic actor in the world during the pandemic. When we went on our walking meetings and talked on the phone, I appreciated the advice and support that you provided. You also were key to us launching Skillsline as we put together quick content with our technology partner, and only a couple weeks, we actually were showing that to an audience at NACCE that gave us the druthers to continue. Not only is NACCE a theoretical, you have the theory of entrepreneurialism, but you also help us and cultivate that ecosystem. So I think one of the things that thank you. One of the things that I'm excited about is this opportunity to include people in the economy that have not had the opportunity to participate meaningfully. We see these incredible changes in the educational system where we're looking at a skills revolution, where a person's capacity, their ability to produce, what they give back is now not seen through a stamp of approval or sometimes a degree. It's rather seen through the skills that they have. And I think Skillsline, I'm excited about our role in helping people understand and navigate the complexities of the world of work through developing a foundation of human skills. And that inclusive economy that Courtney mentions, we think can be a true reality, and that we can bring people up, and economic mobility, I think, is the future.
And I will just build on that by saying, I think about so many partners that we've talked with and worked with in all over the country, Arizona, Texas, Louisiana, Indiana, Florida, all over, who tell stories about young people who have an incredible set of foundational skills to start with and don't recognize that they have them. And so cannot go to an employer and say, I have shown independence and resilience and perseverance, and here's how I can bring those to you. And so when we talk about an inclusive economy and enabling more people to participate, part of it is helping them with the language and understanding of the skills they already have from whatever life experiences they've had, and then building on top of that. So I'm very hopeful, optimistic to see more and more of those stories come to fruition, and more people get to participate in our economy.
That's awesome. So yeah, I think that's really how you can make the world a better place with the life that you have and the businesses that we create. So I want to thank you so much for sharing that. And I hope people that are listening to this podcast will take what you have shared with us. If people want to find out more about Skillsline, how do they do that?
Our website is skillsline.co.
Okay.
And please visit us there. You can send messages there. And we'd also love to connect on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Thank you both very much.
Thank you, Becky. We appreciate
Thank you.